Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Boardroom for 2021. It's been an interesting start to the year. Yesterday, the UK announcing a full lockdown, which will, of course, impact the economy over there very substantially. We're going into full Brexit, of course, now, and so many other questions that we have for the economy. And we thought we would do a quick introductory session this year with two leading economists on the island to give us a little bit of insight into what we can expect. Before I introduce them, we are live, of course. If you do have any questions this morning, please do add them below, and I will try to put them to our interviewees today. If you don't manage to catch this live, it will be streamed back on who'swho.mt, Malta's leading business portal. So to help give a little bit of clarity about what we can expect from the economy in 2021, allow me to introduce my fabulous guests this morning. They are Cordina, the Executive Director at E-Cubed Consultants Limited, and Dr. Stephanie Fabri, an economist and lecturer at the University of Malta. Gordon and Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us on the Boardroom this morning.
Thank you and good morning.
Great
Good morning, Joe. Wonderful to be back in your boardroom again.
Thank you, Gordon. Great to have you. You are quite a seasoned member of the Boardroom. You've joined us a few times before. You, in fact, had joined us for one of our first shows ever, back when the Boardroom first began. I believe it was April last year. And we had tried to give some predictions then about how this situation, the pandemic, would impact the global economy and Malta's economy specifically. And I'll come to you first, Gordon, for a little bit of insight in where we're at. You know, when we met originally in April, could we have foreseen where we are now? Is it better or worse than you expected?
Well, as we all know, it is a time where forecasts are easier to make for the longer future rather than for the immediate future because of the uncertainties of the timing of the major developments affecting our situation so far. It is also a time perhaps where the overall macro situation is of less relevance to individual businesses, which might be living very different kind of paths in terms of their evolution within the ongoing context. So it's not simply a question of uncertainty at the global level, it's also a question of uncertainty between different sectors and different businesses, which are leading quite different kind of lives within the overall economic situation. Are we where we expect to be? More or less, yes. We've lost one-third of our economy, more or less, which is close to 4 years of growth that we had experienced over the past few years. That has affected different businesses in different ways. There are those, as I said, which have lost more than half of their activities. There are those which manage to continue growing in the current situations. There are those which are thriving and doing even better. The question now will be to look ahead into the future, to an eventual recovery, to those businesses which will do even better, and to those which will have to either be helped to survive or to be restructured, consolidated, or done away with in a new economic environment.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon, for that introduction there. I appreciate it. And Stephanie, coming over to you. I mean, I'm sure you would agree, 2020, a bit of an annus horribilis for many businesses. For you, was it worse or better than you expected it to be?
Well, I think I would say better and worse, depending on how you look at it, economically and socially. I think worse, or rather, it's a very difficult period. And when we started this sort of crisis, we didn't even talk about it because we spoke a lot about economic growth and the economic downturns of it, is in terms of inequality. I think this sort of crisis exuberated inequalities between developing and developed countries at a global level. High debt countries, of course, suffered more than countries that had more stable fiscal conditions, and also inequalities in terms of health systems. In Malta, we are very lucky that we have an impeccable health system. However, not all countries can, of course, say the same. There has been also inequality in terms of jobs, and as Gordon said as well, within sectors. In terms of jobs, why? Data statistics show that highly skilled jobs, 60% of them were easily transferable to remote working, while only 10% of the low-skilled jobs. So even at a global level, low-skilled jobs suffered more in terms of unemployment compared to the high-skilled jobs. And we have seen inequality, we use the term inequality, but in terms of different sectors. Some sectors suffered more in this crisis than others. Better, because I always see the silver lining, every cloud has a silver lining, as they say. We have managed to avoid very, very long periods of lockdown, and we have managed to balance the economy and the health system through social distancing. So that is a positive. And I think another area of silver lining is that sort of this crisis, we managed to see a sense of environmental awareness coming from both governments and societies in general. And we have also seen the importance of technology research and innovation. We were waiting for the vaccine. Waiting for the vaccine means that we were waiting for research, innovation, and technology to work. So every individual now appreciates the effectiveness of this technology research and innovation. So I think better in these grounds. So we have a sort of idea what we want from the future.
Thank you, Stephanie. And speaking of the vaccine, I'll stay with you for a bit of insight, perhaps, in how you think things will play out now that we have the vaccine. We've had the first few doses arrive in Malta. I know some people have felt that the vaccine will be a sort of magic wand to bring this situation under control very quickly. But we are seeing that isn't necessarily going to be the way it plays out. What are your predictions around the vaccination and the economy and how that will happen in the next few months?
Well, 2020 is behind us and the year of COVID, but I think the economic impact of COVID is not. As Gordon said, we have seen different institutions making different predictions on the impact on the economy of COVID, the EU Commission, IMF, World Bank, but all of these had something in common, and that something in common was we will start seeing economic growth as soon as we find this magical wand, the vaccine. Now, the discussion is how effective the vaccine will be. So the economy depends on the effectiveness of this vaccine. We have heard of this new variant. We have to see how it will come to play and how it will affect the economy and to what extent the vaccine, if it is effective on this new variant, and how effective are public health systems in rolling out these vaccines. We have two distinct countries. Israel, for example, they managed to give over 1 million vaccines in just 10 days, whilst France are finding it very difficult in terms of effectiveness of the rollout. So all of these elements come to play. What I think in terms of the economy is that we have to be realistic. We cannot be too pessimistic or too optimistic. We have to be very, very realistic. And government, policymakers, and even consultants, now our aim is to strive to help businesses see beyond the crisis and exploit the potential areas of growth that might come after the crisis. But there are various unknowns, so it is very difficult to predict.
Thank you, Stephanie. Gordon, coming to you off the back of that, there are various unknowns. And I think, 2020 was the year of unknowns and big shocks. Do you anticipate that now that the vaccine is in our midst, that things are going to get a little more certain for businesses in Malta and even overseas?
The resolution of the medical situation still leaves us with the economic problems right in our hands. I mean, imagine the crisis of 10 years ago. It involved no medical problem, but it still involved the economic problem of a global decline in GDP, which had to be resolved through massive fiscal injections and monetary easing, which we are suffering from to this very day in terms of low interest rates and difficulties to kickstart the global economies, especially the larger industrialized ones. And we now face the similar economic problem being compounded because of this new event. So I wouldn't say that economically we're out of the woods as soon as we resolve quickly or less so the medical problem. The economic situation will take far more effort to address. This said, our economy and our businesses can be likened to those tiny mammals which survived the catastrophe which destroyed the dinosaurs some 65 million years ago. In terms of our smallness, our ability to respond to opportunities and overcome threats, we have shown this nimbleness 10 years ago in the global economic crisis. Then we should now firmly focus on the methods which we should be applying in the months and years to come. And there are several opportunities if we are ready to bite the bullet, change our operating environment, and really focus on things which we should have been and we have been discussing now for decades, such as quality tourism, sustainable development, better use of land space, focusing on the quality of our living environments. These would be the key economic policy, business, and social considerations, which I hope will see us through this crisis and bring us back to a position of strength.
Thank you, Gordon. And staying with you, I mean, we talk about these opportunities and we've mentioned them before. Many business people are hugely aware of where we should be going with developing a sustainable economy. And yet it still feels a little bit like, we're stinted. We're not able to move in this direction. If you were making policy today, what would you be doing to push these forward immediately and effectively for the business community and, of course, society at large?
Well, there is a term called economic planning, which is very often associated with a bad word almost. One will not plan the economy because that is associated with interference with prices or with interference on the kind of businesses that we do. That is true for perhaps 3 or 4 decades ago. Now we have to understand that in the current situation, businesses more than ever need guidance, need a degree of certainty on the kind of business environments that they will be operating in over the next 5 to 10 years. And I believe that policymakers have and should, within the context of an overall plan of where we see our population going, its composition, the likely productivity requirements, the likely demands to meet environmental standards and social targets. Where are we heading as a country, and where, as an individual business, I can find an opportunity or potentially make a contribution such that I can plan and invest in a more secure manner to overcome, in good part, the uncertainties which are being created by the overall medical and economic situation abroad. So I am a firm believer at this point for a strategic plan for our economy, not so much to tell us in detail in which sectors to go or where to invest, but more to tell us where we are expected to go as a country over the next few years so that we can be in a better position to plan our investments. Shall we plan for a 500,000 population country or for a 750,000 population country over the next 10 years? Shall we expect a certain level of tourist intake or another kind of tourism to take up? How serious will the government be in promoting ESG requirements within business? These are the questions that I think we need to have answered for us in order to be in a better position to plan ahead.
Thank you, Gordon. Stephanie, I see you nodding along with me there. Certain things that resonate very clearly with us, that we believe in this sort of level of planning. And could I ask you for your input there about whether you see this as a direction that's important? And again, if you were making policy right now, what other questions do you think need to be asked?
Well, I think now is the time to, yes, give priority to the short term, because we need to help businesses, families, and individuals to survive the present situation. So it is good that we are focusing on the short term, but it is also a time to start looking at the long term, start planning a vision, start focusing on our economic transformation if we really do want this economic transformation. This involves a lot of hard work. It's a strenuous process. It involves a lot of big decisions to be made in terms of, as Gordon said, the demographics, what kind of even foreign investment we want, what kind of talent we want to attract to Malta, what level of population we want, and so on and so forth. So yes, we need to balance between the short and long term. The long term now is even more important than ever, because when we come out of the crisis, we need to be prepared to exploit these opportunities. This will determine our competitiveness. And competitiveness is not just a cliche word. Competitiveness means that when we are out there, out of this crisis, we need to be able to attract investment vis-a-vis other countries that might be more profitable to invest in or attractive to invest in. And this can be achieved if we focus on our workforce, on enhancing its skills, education, and on focusing on the environment, research, and innovation. Those are the areas that we need to focus on.
Thank you, Stephanie. And of course, we hope that they will be focused on, and we hope that these questions are being asked and answered where they need to be asked and answered. To switch tack just a little bit, Stephanie, and I'll stay with you on the topic of job losses and business closures. At the start of the pandemic, there were some very negative predictions made about the number of jobs that would be lost and businesses that would close. I mean, I'm sure we all know of people who have had to close their businesses and who have lost their jobs, but perhaps the numbers aren't as high as originally feared. What would be your prediction in this area? Are we going to see more pain in this area, or do we think that things will start picking up again?
So in terms of predictions, again, government intervention plays a key role here. It played a key role throughout the crisis and a key role in the coming year. So everything depends on if, when, and how the government will start alleviating the measures that have helped in keeping employment in check and even businesses ongoing. As we said before, different sectors have been affected differently, so different workers and families have been affected differently. If we look at tourism and wholesale, they have been affected to a larger extent, and even other sectors that are related to these industries, such as the entertainment. And this is not just in Malta, but basically across the world, although different countries depend differently on different sectors, such as tourism. Again, the government here plays a crucial role, but even the private sector. So the private sector should start looking beyond the crisis and at investing beyond the crisis, so that when we're out of it, we don't go back to square one and sort of we start laying off workers, but we keep the workers because we have new business prospects and a new vision to work towards.
Thank you, Stephanie. Gordon, coming to you to speak a little bit about some recent statistics that have come in about the 82,000 people in Malta who are at risk of poverty. Obviously, this has wider implications for the economy and is a very alarming statistic. Do you see this figure rising now as a result of the pandemic? I mean, has this exacerbated the situation?
Well, I would not excessively play the card of the statistic regarding the population at risk of poverty. It is not so much a measure of people in trouble. It's more a measure of people not being equal to other people. So the best way to reduce the statistics actually is to reduce everyone's income to a very low level, and you'd have full equality, and you'd have no one who's at risk of poverty, more or less, because relativities would be the same. What I would worry more is more about the concept of in-work poverty. So people whose job has perhaps been or is being saved and retained also through fiscal support, but whose income levels are such that they are not sufficient to allow them to lead a certain quality of life, which could be expected within this kind of society, where there are also other sectors which are thriving and doing better. So these guys are not only poor in terms of money, but they're also poor in terms of time, because they're also having to spend their effort in performing a job rather than learning a new skill or taking care of their families or whatever. So that is something which is worrying me a bit more, and where we have seen an increase also through the COVID episode. From a social perspective, of course, we need to take care of this consideration, but we're also living through a time where we need to worry about businesses which are still burning cash while they're sustaining employment through this type of government support. And we have to ask ourselves, for how long can this kind of cash burning by business, which are eating into their past reserves and which could therefore compromise their future viability. At the same time that they're also receiving government money, which is costing the country. I mean, we have now a deficit close to 10% of GDP, which is, of course, another alarming statistic in itself. How long can we continue to support this kind of situation? Hopefully it will be weeks rather than months, and definitely not beyond the third or fourth quarter of this year. Beyond that, we'll need to start thinking about plan Bs in terms of how to redeploy these workers, what to do with this kind of business in order to overcome these short-term problems. And that's even before starting thinking about how to reinvest in order to sustain profitability and competitiveness in the more longer term. So I should think that policymakers are still concerned with these real threats. Businesses are still concerned with these real threats, as are a good part of our workers who are still employed in the more vulnerable sectors. So this will be a key consideration going forward, at least for the next few months.
Okay, good. And we talked there about sort of government support, and obviously businesses not needing to keep relying on this government support. As business owners, what should people be doing at this point in order to set themselves up for when the government support inevitably ends? And obviously, people are maybe found with sort of a gap in the income that they would have because the recovery still hasn't taken hold fully. What should businesses be doing on a daily basis to try and prepare for that inevitability?
Stephanie mentioned earlier on the idea of pessimism, optimism, continuing to think in a level-headed way in these difficult circumstances, which is not easy given the uncertainties that we're facing. Thinking rationally, comes very difficult in a situation of increased uncertainty. So individual businesses, as we're saying, should on the one hand avoid irrational exuberance, which means irrational optimism, and therefore prepare for the worst possible outcomes over the next few months, so that they have a plan on how to proceed should the situation turn out to be worse than we can handle over the next few months. On the other hand, this being prepared for the worst shouldn't lead us into a situation of irrational pessimism, which then means that while you're preparing for the worst, you would also be thinking and preparing for how to reap opportunities which will be presenting themselves going into the future. Now, in order to be able to cope with all this problem, you would need strength. You would need a certain business size, which can rely on past reserves, which can rely on networks, contacts with other businesses, with clients, and with the policymakers, so that one can guide the necessary interventions at all levels in these matters of preparing for risks while thinking of opportunities. And these opportunities, to my mind, will basically involve accelerating many of the past programs that we have been discussing over the years. Looking at sustainable development, for example, as our key competitiveness factor, improving the quality of our living spaces, building a tourism model quickly now, which really is on a lower volume but of higher quality. We've been saying this for decades. Now COVID compels us to do this in a matter of a couple of years if we are to really recover from this situation. Going digital, going less carbon. These are all factors which we have so far been just discussing, but which COVID is now really compelling us to attack in a very determined way. Businesses will not be able to do this on their own. Businesses need to be prepared for all this, but they also need to be comforted that they'll be doing this in an environment, in a situation where economic policy as a whole is supporting this overall trust of building on sustainable development as a way to overcome our current problems.
Thank you, Gordon. Great insight there. And Stephanie, coming to you off the back of that, is there anything that you'd like to add to what Gordon said about what businesses can be doing to prepare for this period? But also, what can the government be doing? Are there any best examples from other parts of the world for the kind of support that businesses could look forward to coming out of this?
Look, Joe, in terms of businesses, I would say that my recommendation is to work hard to survive the present situation, but work even harder to build your future, a better future. This is a period that distinguishes between the best and the excellent. Those who will strive for transformation will come out stronger from this. My recommendation is that the businesses should not be too overexposed and leveraged, and good corporate governance is at the moment key in terms of readiness and their resilience. It is important, and a major lesson learned here is that enterprises need to have good risk management ingrained in their culture. So yes, my recommendation to businesses is, yes, work hard to survive the present situation and even hard to build your future. In terms of government, I think the government played, as I said before, a key role in mitigating the consequences of COVID. We have seen countries like New Zealand, for example, which have also been very successful in mitigating the impacts of COVID. And yes, why not? We should look at what these countries are doing. But Malta has its own challenges. We are a small country. We are exposed to international trade. So we need to keep in check sort of these inherent disadvantages that we have. I think the aim of the government at the moment should be that whilst focusing on the short term and helping businesses sort of plan even for the short term, is to heavily focus on having a clear vision for Malta, because this vision will ultimately help us plan for the current and future investment. Not only it will help government, but it will help businesses. Businesses need sort of a plan for the future to see what kind of investments they will be looking for. If, for example, we're discussing tourism, are we really going in the direction of quality tourism? Are we finding a balance between quality or quantity? Or are we going back to what we were pre-COVID? This kind of direction and clarity will help the different sectors in terms of what kind of investments they need. I think here we're agreeing that we need, Gordon mentioned economic planning, we need a vision that is very detailed and that looks at all aspects of the economy.
Thank you, Stephanie. Always so interesting to hear about New Zealand mentioned so often on this show. I really think they should be running the world. I think we have so much to learn from them and what they've achieved. Okay, thank you so much for that. As we wrap up our conversation today, I'd just love to have your prediction. I know it's difficult, both of you. I've asked this before of you, Gordon, and I know it's not easy to say, but I'd love to have your thoughts on how you think the next few months are going to plan out, perhaps what we can look forward to, but also what we should be wary of. And Stephanie, I'll come to you first.
Well, for sure, what we know is that different sectors will be facing a different scenario, will be experiencing different things in the coming months. Government intervention, as the Minister of Finance said, government help will remain, so that helps in maintaining stability. But it is very difficult to predict given the uncertainties. The UK has gone again into lockdown. They didn't predict this. We do not know what is going to happen. So predicting at this point in time is very risky. What we can predict is that we can plan to be ready to face the different options, the different scenarios that we might face. The COVID might take longer, the effectiveness of the vaccine might not be as effective as we think, or it might be as effective as we think, but we need to plan for the different scenarios so that when we're faced with the situation that we will be facing, we will be ready in terms of the decisions that we will be taking. Both government and the private sector now play a key role in working together to establish sort of the measures to be taken in the different scenarios. Being ready now is key for the short term. And again, planning for the short term, it has to be worked out in parallel for sure.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great insight there. And finally, Gordon, over to you for your predictions.
Yeah, I agree very much with Stephanie. Predictions at this stage are not only difficult, but possibly dangerous and irresponsible, in the sense that if we prepare our business, our actions on the basis of any one single forecast, which will be very likely turn out to be wrong, then we might end up in a very sorry state by the end of this year and the next. More than ever, we need to be prepared with a strategy which is flexible to meet different contingencies. And this is true at the level of the government, where we expect an extent of direction, planning, and indication regarding how we expect the overall situation to be developing over the next years. At the level of business planning, where we expect more consideration for risk management in the worst possible scenario and effective transformation in order to do what we should have done many years ago, but which we are now compelled to do even quicker. At the level of the individual worker, where realistically we might expect things to turn worse before they turn better, and therefore there might be needs for reskilling, upskilling, multi-skilling, and other similar approaches. We also need to appreciate the role which overall society has to play in this, in really looking at sustainable development as the key to emerge stronger from this crisis and build our future in the sustainable manner from the perspective of land planning, emissions, waste management, and other social equality and integration issues quicker, more than ever. We are now compelled to take these actions because we now cannot afford complacency on any of these issues anymore.
Gordon, thank you again. Great insight there. Lots to think about as we sort of go into our future. Lots to plan for. But as you say there, bide our time. Be careful. Invest where you can, and obviously pivot as we continue to talk about on this show. Look for the opportunities that are going to keep businesses safe. So, thank you both for your insight. A great start to the year. A wonderful conversation as always. Thank you so much for being with me on the boardroom. And to all of you watching at home or at the office, great to see you, great to be back with you in the new year, and we look forward to seeing you again. If you do have any topics that you'd love us to discuss on the show, please do let us know. We'll be happy to work on those for you and to have the conversations that are important to you. In the meantime, I wish you all the best for 2021, and I look forward to seeing you again on the boardroom.